Welcome to Sri Lanka, everyone, and thank you to everyone in the long run for this incredible virtual impact show. It's an amazing concept and well done for getting it off the ground. So yes, from Sri Lanka, I'm the co-founder of Are You in the Wild Holidays, full service boutique DMC. My husband and I started Are You in the Wild. Our entire team is made up of Sri Lankans. They're all born, raised, and educated in Sri Lanka. And we kind of have it in our DNA to want to give back to our island. And so when we started Are You in the Wild, I didn't come from a tourism background. I came from a development finance background. And my biggest challenge was to see how I could make luxury tourism really benefit Sri Lankans. Because most of the time, when it comes to luxury travel, much of the funds are kept overseas. And so we wanted to bring everything into Sri Lanka and to ensure that there was a trickle-down effect into the community and into nature. Sri Lanka is one of the world's biodiversity hotspots. And that was the challenge. How do I reimagine luxury? Uh, how do I reimagine luxury travel to benefit Sri Lanka and Sri Lankans? Because sustainable travel need not compromise on luxury at all, at all. And that's a misconception that I really wanted to break. And so when we designed our trips, when we started curating our trips, we realized we have connections all over the island. And we started looking at how do we allow a world's biodiversity hotspot to be showcased to travelers? How do we allow residents in Sri Lanka to not be objectified in tourism, but to showcase their lifestyle, to showcase our traditions, to showcase our rituals, our arts, our craft, our traditions, all of that. How do we bring that into luxury travel? And that's when we started curating all these experiences because we have 22 million people on our island. We're an island that is the same size as Tasmania, which has maybe about 500,000 people. And 25% of our population live below the poverty line. And it is very important to us that our trips have a trickle-down effect to benefit Sri Lankans not on the tourist trail, Sri Lankans that are providing experiences not in the guidebooks, that are not, the experiences are not provided by just the hotels. So as a DMC, as a travel company that is 100% Sri Lankan owned and based in Sri Lanka, that was our key challenge. And to do this, we looked at the benefits that tourism should have on the island, because Sri Lanka being an island, we are vulnerable to climate change, we are susceptible to climate change impact on our agriculture, on everything really, on the dynamics, on the global dynamics, on the political dynamics, on geopolitical dynamics. So we started working with locals around the island, our own personal contacts, to design experiences that are not in the guidebooks. And this, we realized to date, we have 55 unique local experiences that cover all 9 provinces across the island, from the north to the south, everywhere in between. 18 of these experiences are nature-based and 37 are community-based. And these are people who are that we work with who are living their ordinary lives. So they're people who walk these forested trails for their normal day-to-day livelihoods, who will become our local community-based guides for our nature treks, for our biodiversity treks. All of our experiences, all of our trips are hosted by naturalists. Because Sri Lanka being a world's biodiversity hotspot, it's very important that life in a biodiversity hotspot and its challenges are showcased to travelers. And that's what we do from our trips. So we work with rural families, grassroots families, farmers, artisans, craft makers, poets, drummers, musicians. All of them are either from underprivileged households or micro entrepreneurs. And from each of our trips, we allow our guests to engage with people not in an objectified manner, not where, tourism is a staged act, but it is their ordinary lives, their day-to-day lives that get showcased. All the while we use the most beautiful design-led properties around the island. So that's what I meant when I said that you don't need to compromise on luxury to make tourism sustainable, because the money from tourism needs to filter down to locals, to local conservation efforts. And being a biodiversity hotspot, we have incredible conservation needs, incredible. And most of our trips not only filter tourism revenue down into the hands of these locals through the 55 unique local experiences, it has benefited 200 of our beneficiaries. It has benefited over 150 artisans and micro entrepreneurs whose capacity we have built for them to be able to host these experiences. And we realized around 3 to 5% of our total revenue funds these experiences, as well as funds our positive impact initiatives, because as a DMC, we want to fund total homegrown initiatives. And one of the initiatives, for example, that we do is called Classroom in the Wild. And this Classroom in the Wild is a spoken English initiative that we do in a tourism hub, but where there are wild elephants. So good teachers don't come into this local community. And these children have been following this spoken English class that we've operated and managed since 2014. And when our guests interact with these kids, it's not a case of objectifying these kids. It's about allowing these kids to practice what they learn. It's about our guests learning about the challenges of education in rural Sri Lanka. It's where they see, okay, so from this trip, this amount is going into helping these kids learn something beyond their farms. One of my biggest successful stories where my team and I, all Sri Lankans, we're really happy to see that one of these kids that's been following our class since 2014, she's now training to be a local village guide and taking our guests to show her village, how they live. And so, Are You in the Wild is really not about ecotourism as such. It's about reimagining luxury, because using our tourism revenue, we ensure that there are local communities that benefit, that there are rural locals that can showcase our traditions, our history, our archaeology, our lifestyles. There are conservation efforts, homegrown conservation efforts. Because when I listen to things about carbon offsetting, about making sure that the carbon footprint is offset by funding a project globally that plants certain amount of trees, I'm not quite sure whether I really buy into that, because I think conservation needs that are homegrown, especially in a biodiversity hotspot like Sri Lanka. That is where the tourism dollars need to go in. And that's one of the challenges that I want to address, where I can bring in global strategic alliances, be the conduit with the local biodiversity conservation efforts, right? And bring in that global knowledge, the global resources to protect one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, to protect environments for local communities to thrive in. And that's really at the core of the luxury travel brand that we've built since 2012.